Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Backtrekking, the podcast where we look back at the real-world inspirations behind classic episodes of Star Trek. I'm one of your hosts, Caliban, and the cheaper the podcast, the gaudier the patter. I'm joined on this episode by my co-host.
It was a hard rain. I forgot what else to say. I'm Gooey Fame.
We've returned to explore the stories behind your favorite Trek shows, and today we're diving into the morally murky world of film noir with one of the classic Hollywood detective stories and the Star Trek episode that it inspired. It's the 1941 film The Maltese Falcon and the Star Trek The Next Generation episode, The Big Goodbye.
Yeah, classic combo here. This is kind of I think I said in the last episode, but it's kind of one of the big things I feel like you think of when you think of like Trek's inspirations on specific episodes.
Yeah, no having to convince anybody about this one. We are
I
directly
swear
in
Batman
our wheelhouse.
fits.
Yeah. Oh, we've got so many sins to pay for. Let's talk about some of the news in Star Trek before we get into our feature for this week's episode. And there's a lot of big news coming out of Paramount. I think we've talked about before how it seems like every week they're doing one of these, especially in the spring, I guess early in the year, they're doing one of these Critics Association things or these press tour things where they trot the suits out, although they're probably wearing turtlenecks and blazers. And they talk about like all the things you should be excited about. Get your toothpaste commercials ready. Get your investment dollars ready. We're doing a bunch of stuff. And Paramount recently made a huge announcement, first of all, that they are changing their name to Paramount. The merged Viacom-CBS company will now be known as Paramount for ease of use. And that's interesting. I'm sure that local affiliates will still use, the network CBS as a brand, but everything is Paramount going forward. And Paramount had a lot to announce, a lot in terms of the properties that they own and control. They announced more Transformers material. They announced more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles material. But specifically, as relates to what we talk about on this show, they announced that Star Trek IV is in development. And that announcement was confirmed no less by J.J. Abrams, producer on the project.
JJ himself. Okay,
that's right.
I'll believe it when I see it. They're not gonna fool me.
I will too, and I think the people who are in the movie will believe it when they see it because the day after he made that announcement, a lot of the stars who are in the Star Trek film or will ostensibly be in it were like, "Oh, okay." A lot of their agents were like, we are excited to do this. We did not know about this. So maybe they jumped the gun a little bit. But most of those stars have said in the past that they would all be totally willing to come back to the franchise.
Yeah. It's not surprising to me that they're like not consulting them at all or anything. Yeah. They're like, it's all about the brand, not you guys.
Well, that's true. What's Zoe Saldana up to? Come back and play these roles.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is, I find myself more excited than I thought that I would be about this. I mean, I've talked for a while about how I just want a new Star Trek movie. I think it's way past time, especially in a world of Marvel films and DC films and even like mid-budget kind of films. We need a Star Trek, and I think part of the problem up to this point has been a lack of focus of where to go, and also not a lack of money. I mean, they just bought an entire company, but a lack of knowing, how to execute this. I think that Hollywood tends to think of their successful movies as needing to be blockbusters. And that was never really how Star Trek worked before. They were always mid-budget sort of movies, maybe somewhat high for a movie based on an old TV show at the time when they came out, but they didn't have to cost, $250 million in, money, whatever year money they were in, or whatever the money was worth in the year that they were released. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of, I think, what the problem is now. There's been a couple projects floating around that they've been trying to work on, and one of them needed the guy that plays Thor to come back, and that was apparently too much money. Chris
Which
Pine
is like, why?
is on.
Like, we don't need him.
Yeah, that's true.
He's great. I'm
he is
just
Thor.
saying.
He is Thor. Every other solo movie he's tried to make has not done well. But and then Chris Pine, another actor in the same boat, but a guy who is definitely on board, but thinks he deserves more money. And I don't I don't disagree that he does deserve more money, but they're all pushing this film, no matter what the filmmaker's intentions are, into that kind of upper range, that $100 million plus range. And I think if Noah Hawley, the guy who makes great TV shows, wants to do like a mid-budget thing, it makes the executives go, I don't know. Like, if we spend $50 million, will it succeed? Or is the idea worth over $100 million? And so having JJ on board, I think would cure that $100 million problem. But I don't know. I wonder if they know where they're going yet.
I still think there's going to be like an expectation of like, this has to be a huge movie.
Yeah.
I think that's just how everything is now.
Yeah, but how much was Resurrections? We talked about it. I don't even know how much it cost.
I don't even know.
That was a movie I think that was probably could have been a mid-sized movie, and I'm sure they spent a ton of money on it and are disappointed because it didn't do well. But
right.
The way that the business works now, it's just you don't see these $60-70 million movies in a franchise like we used to have with the old Trek movies.
Yeah, you know what they need to do? They'll never do it. They need to accept right away we're making a budget movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not going to do that. But step 2 is you call up Johnny Frakes and you say, yeah. "Hey, make us a movie," because those movies he did make where they're like just on like what looks like a TV set and he makes it look like a movie. It's like, that looks pretty good. And I think they should just do that again. But I don't know. I'm sure the expectation is this is another big franchise. We got to have the Star Trek verse, even though it already is a Star Trek verse. They're going to find a way to like somehow do that anyway in a series that is already doing that. They're going to double do it. I don't know.
He's going to bring it in on time, under budget. Here's your movie. Looks like an Apple store. I'm being blinded by lights. There's a ton of CG. Here's his movie. Perhaps a Logitech joystick could be the controller, the manual controller for the Enterprise E.
It will be it'll be like all the 90s computer accessories.
Right. In fact, if they wanted to save money, they could lean into that. And Star Trek fans would 100% accept that. I think the problem is that they want these movies to have this mainstream broad appeal. That's the only way they feel like they can return their investment. Everything is the biggest bet at the casino, all in, go big or go home. And I don't know, like Star Trek has not existed in that space. And of course, however you feel about the previous JJ movies, they definitely kind of poisoned that well because they were successful. 2.5 of them were successful monetarily, and so I think that they think that that's the only way to go forward. I don't know.
The only other thing I can think of is if they're trying to do one that's like broad appeal, is they should just do what they do in the last one, which is just get a Fast and Furious guy to make it. They got James Wan right with the last one. They should get
Justin Lin.
Justin Lin. Okay, so they should get James Wan to make this one.
Oh my God. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying is like get
Spock's got somebody living in the back of his head and they're kung fu fighting, and
because the alternative that they've done lately is just like it was like, oh, Khan's back, remember him? It's like that's what I fear is like the new one will be is like there's whales or you know what I mean, like
right, yeah.
We started searching the galaxy so hard that we found whales or something,
Yeah, I would love to have Justin Lin back. I think that he's probably hard at work on the next Fast and Furious, or Fast and F Tennis, as I think it's going to be called. I mean, I thought his direction was great on Beyond. Whatever shortcomings Beyond had, I don't think it was Justin Lin's fault. And I'd love to see something like that. But instead, it's going to be Matt Shakman. Matt Shakman is, I think, mostly a TV producer and director. He directed most, if not all, of the episodes of WandaVision that were out recently. And so, and as a WandaVision director, it's not like it's Marvel TV, so you're working with a lot of money, but he is working in a TV space, so maybe he'll be able to merge the sensibilities of cinema, but also, people go to a Star Trek film and you say it feels like an episode. That's not a detraction necessarily. Sometimes you want it to feel like a huge budget episode. So maybe he'll be able to deliver on that. He's also directed Game of Thrones episodes as well.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'll go see it. I'm interested to see whatever they do.
That's what I don't. I mean, like, you always got a built-in audience, right? And if you're a guy in one of these turtleneck blazer combos, maybe you don't think that that's enough. I mean, it was enough for Star Trek 4. It's not enough for Star Trek 5. And so that scares you, I guess. But especially with the way that you have grown your audience organically with all the new Star Trek shows on now Paramount Plus, those people are going to go see. They're going to go see their little sim and roll, Command the Enterprise. They're definitely, you've got them too. So you got old fans, you got new fans.
And they'll like it no matter what.
Or they'll like to complain about it.
Right. Because I remember going to see Into Darkness, like when I was like just done with like watching everything I could. I liked the last one, but that was like the first one I saw like after I had like just finished watching all the series. And I just loved seeing Star Trek in the theaters, and it wasn't until later where I was like, oh yeah, that was bad. But I loved it at the time,
Yeah.
Once I like thought about it.
I was probably one of those love to hate it people. Yeah. I didn't love Into Darkness, but I've come to appreciate it after having had to watch it like 12 times just for the respective properties that I'm involved in.
Different paths.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Stockholmed me into loving it. So, I definitely at this point, I just want to see what they do because, the first one was tough, but I think it was not exactly a layup, but it's like, let's reintroduce, the old series to a new audience. And so we'll keep all the characters and their basic recognizable forms, but then we can add a new aesthetic. And then the second one, I think we can all agree was just a bad idea. Just trying to take, here's something else that from there, and let's just remake that. And the third one was like, at that point, I think people were turned off. But I think the third one was like, they were trying to do something totally new, like within their own new universe that they'd created. And I think that it's really underrated. And now that their back's against the wall, I want to see what they make now. Like, what do they make to try to get everybody invested again? So, yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking forward to this. Yeah, if it happens. If JJ is lying to us, I'll never forgive him.
I think they could be not lying, but it's just like they're just never going to get it together. Or, well, who are we kidding? It's like a massive franchise. They'll make one eventually. It'll happen someday. Unless like the world ends, which could happen too.
That could also happen. We're always in threat of that happening. But I definitely think that that you're right. And it's surprising that it's been this long. Obviously they're doing this big push with the way that they've reorganized the company. And so that's why we're getting this this announcement now. But you're right. The arc of a new Star Trek film is long, but it leads to us getting to see it.
It's just like in Matrix, where they're like, yeah, it's going to happen no matter what. It's an inevitability.
Yeah. That's right. Let's not do that, though. Let's not have like Captain Kirk, there's Captain Spirk. There's some new guy or something. And he's like, they were going to do it anyway. Yeah, so we're just going to do it. Here it is.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if they'll do that. Like, here's a pitch. There are people working on a script, but I'll give you a pitch. We fast forward a little bit and we gray up Chris Pine a little bit, and we have him once again steal from the original movie series and just say, I'm an admiral now. I'm old, but I wish I could go back and do things differently. And that's where our time travel comes in.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought they were just going to be like, make him old now. You had me sort of thinking about like Skyfall, where they like just got done telling like the origin story of the character, and now it's like the third movie and they're like, you're old. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
They should just do that. Like jump to
James Bond entirely premised on this is his first mission, and then like the next movie is like, I want to quit.
You know what? That's kind of what they did in Into Darkness, because like in Star Trek 2009, it's like Kirk and Spock are like meeting for the first time, and they seem to hate each other. And then even in the second movie, they like really seem to hate each other, but then they like play on your emotions of like their history, like you've been watching it for, decades, when it's like, not these characters.
Yeah.
So they could totally do that. Just like skip ahead. They should have just done that. Been like, yeah, they're old. You know their history.
Well, maybe they'll do that. The minds who mined the lore of Star Trek for the sort of character arcs in those movies, I just don't. All I can think of is, a bunch of people sitting around a table, cold coffee, and they're like, "What do we know about Kirk and Spock? They love and respect each other. Let's take that away. What if they didn't love and respect? What if they were punching each other and they hated each other?" And it's just like, yeah, but that's not, well, it's who also, the characters are. What if Hamlet just killed Claudius in the first act?
What is, like, when you watch the original series, it's like they're like ribbing each other the whole time, and then when you get to the movie is when they really start to get like real heartfelt and stuff,
Yeah.
But it's like, you've had all that time and all that history with the characters, whereas this is like they have the ribbing, but you never see like the friendship develop, It's so bogus.
Well, I think it's kind of cemented, or is supposed to be, at the end of Into Darkness, when they're sort of giving their lives, for each other. But yeah, it doesn't play out in nearly the same way. And, it's also, who uses this term? Kirk drift. Somebody.
Yes.
I want to respect and give credit to whoever came up with that, but just Kirk drift is a real problem, and Kirk drift goes into warp speed with these new movies. Again, you have to find a new way to make the character relatable and engaging, but they just go so in the direction of, well, clearly he's just super irresponsible. He's just Star-Lord, like in a gold shirt, and I'm not sure that totally fits.
Doesn't every character sort of get that treatment in the new movie? Like they're all like. Or the new movies, they're all a little bit kind of like caricatures of their original versions, or am I off on that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. What always appealed to, I think, most fans of Spock is that, we know that he has the conflicts that you are playing out, but he is in control. And so they flare up sometimes and cause problems for him, but we understand that they're under the surface. And of the JJ movies just make them totally explicit. He's just screaming at people and punching people. And then, I brought up Star-Lord. Poor Zoe Saldana. Sure, we gave her more to do, but it's basically what she does in the Guardians movies, which is like, come on, you guys, we have to do the plot of the movie. Stop arguing. Yeah. She's just kind of the
nag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, a great future coming up for Star Trek 4. We're not leaving them much to work with, but looking forward to the film nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm into it, because I just hope they continue just going for a space adventure we don't need to do the callbacks. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and I don't know if I should be surprised that J.J. Abrams is still connected. I mean, at this point, I don't know what he inputs creatively. I mean, you definitely, if you're the executive producer, you want to just keep getting money for that. But I wonder if his creative touches will still be in it, or if at this point we can kind of go in a new direction with these characters.
I don't think he
the future
will be,
is open.
But yeah, I think he's just cashing that check.
No more Beastie Boys. Let's do that.
Well,
no problem. Like the Beastie Boys.
I do think they kind of like finally they had like,
I think we completed that arc
in the last one. Yeah,
in the third one. Yeah.
Now let's introduce someone new.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to that. And if you're looking forward to our feature, let's get into it right now. In 1539, the Knight Templars of Malta paid tribute to Charles V of Spain by sending him a golden falcon encrusted from beak to claw with rarest jewels. That's how the movie starts, but that somewhat ostentatious opening text gave viewers in 1941 no indication of the seedy tale of greed, backstabbing, and murder that they were about to witness. If there is an early Hollywood equivalent of the Marvel movie, Well, it's probably the Hollywood musical, but let's say the 40s equivalent of a Zack Snyder film and its comparable popularity would be film noir. Morally complex heroes, evil gangsters, and dangerous women, all inhabiting a world of stark light and dark, influenced by German expressionism and French realism. Despite its Gallic appellation, film noir is a decidedly American genre, and one of the first film noirs, arguably the most respected one, was a film featuring a first-time director, a mostly unknown cast, and an untested leading man. But despite that, it would go on to be considered one of the greatest films of all time, and the stuff that dreams are made of. It's the 1941 classic film noir, The Maltese Falcon.
Come closer. I want to talk to you. I'm going to tell you an astounding story. The story of the Maltese Falcon. 600 years, the falcon has carried the mystery of a fabulous wealth under its grotesque wings. I could tell you 1,000 tales of the men and women who have hunted this evil bird. But every story has the same ending. Murder. Listen to these incredible people, all consumed by their passionate greed for the Maltese Falcon.
What have you ever given me beside money? Have you ever given me any of your confidence, any of the truth? Haven't you tried to buy my loyalty with money and nothing else?
What else is there I can buy you with?
Who? I won't play the sap for you.
I haven't lived a good life. I've been bad. Worse than you could know.
We were talking about a lot more money than this.
There are more of us to be taken care of now.
Well, that may be, but I've got the Falcon.
You may have the Falcon, but we certainly have you.
I've taken all the riding from you I'm gonna take. Get up and shoot it out.
Stop it, the police will be here any minute. Now talk.
Oh, how can you accuse me of such a terrible...
This isn't the time for that schoolgirl act. We're both of us sitting under the gallows.
Yeah, that was a great intro.
Oh, thank you. Half of it was written by John Huston, who wrote this movie and directed it.
Oh wow.
A guy who would go on to be, and I don't think we've talked about a Huston film on
I don't
the show.
think so. No.
Yeah, but many classic films, The Misfits, The Man Who Would Be King, which I know there's a Man Who Would Be King in Trek somewhere. I think we could definitely do that one at some point.
Okay, cool.
African Queen. There's also probably a Treasure of the Sierra Madre in Trek somewhere. All of those guys who, especially the guys that wrote DS9, love Western films and films of John Huston. So, yeah.
Yeah, this was fun to do because, my main, touchstones of this genre are, through all the references, that I think we've had a lot of stuff like that. But this is one where it's I feel like I've seen all these movies, and then I was watching it, and I was like, I never know, but I was just like, oh yeah, I recognize this and this and this, which is fun. I always love doing those kind of episodes.
Yeah. The movie is obviously based on the Maltese Falcon novel by Dashiell Hammett, and the main hero of a noir film is not often totally bad. Sometimes he's very good. Philip Marlowe is a very good man, but Sam Spade is he's a questionable guy. He's a morally gray kind of guy. And in fact, in the film, or excuse me, in the novel, he's often described as Satan-like, sort of like devilish looking. Yeah, he's got a sort of V-like eyebrows and a sort of severe face and a sort of mouth that sort of makes him look, like the devil. And I think that in the film you'll see Bogey sort of pulling on his lip, sometimes when he's thinking. And I think that's an attempt to sort of replicate that kind of that kind of angular, face. Not the face of a hero necessarily.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he seems like he seems very cool, but he does seem like kind of an asshole, I will say, which I thought was cool. But I even thought maybe it's just like different times or something. But I did dive a little bit because of the episode into like some stuff of the Big Sleep and other Philip Marlowe stuff, and I was like, even he kind of came off like, well, not kind of. He also seems like an asshole.
Yeah.
Which makes for kind of an interesting character, because it's like he's cool. He usually does kind of know the right thing to say, but but still, like I said, I don't know how much of that is like, oh, it's just kind of the time, it's the 40s, or how much of that is like, I mean, it is a good insight into the character, I think, too, actually, because he does seem kind of like lonely, you know what I mean?
Yeah, people in this world, they're hard boiled. And, what separates the quote unquote good guys from the quote unquote bad guys, even in this film, it's really only the Elisha Cook's character that it commits all the murders that we know about, except, of course, for Mary Astor's character as well. And so by the end of the film, once the entire, and we're just blowing through all spoilers, as people always know when they listen to the show, when the whole thing turns out to be like a complete bust for everybody, even Gutman's like, you're pretty good. Do you want to come in with Istanbul with us? We're going to do a job there. But at his very heart, Sam Spade is, no, I'm not going to do that.
I like how you said it, like it ends bust, because I was like looking into some of these other stories the Trek episode is inspired by, and they usually do end where it's like, oh, nothing was really good about this, and we didn't really solve anything. And that's how like most of the ones I looked at were, and I was like, is that like a mark of the genre? Because it does make a lot of sense. It does thematically fit in with what this movie is about, I guess.
Yeah, the kind of the futility of man's efforts, and the emptiness of greed, and like nobody rides off into the sunset because the sun is already down in a film noir.
I was sort of thinking, like, if this was made now, like, because no one ever gets the Falcon. And I was thinking, if it was made now, it would be like she secretly gets it at the end, like they go away.
Sure.
The bad guys go away, and they're like, yeah, that was all a trick. I got it.
Yeah, everybody, for how kind of evil they are coded and portrayed, like everybody is very mostly cordial in the film. And I was thinking about if you did remake this, and I didn't even want to look. I'm sure that the basic plot of this has been used, for a Star Trek episode, but for some film somewhere. But you would get to the end, and Gutman would beat Cairo to death with the Falcon, before he checks to see if it's the real one or something like that. Like you would have a lot more of a cost of human lives at the end of this. But of course, at the end, it's just about everybody gets away, or at least he calls the cops on them. So we don't really know what happens, but we do know that Miss O'Shaughnessy she's going to jail. She's going in.
She's going to jail, and like all the people who died, it's seemingly for nothing. It's like,
right.
What, like, do I even believe I could love? It's like, it's good stuff.
And Sam Spade, our hero, who has a heart of gold, or at least a heart that is encased by a lacquer, and possibly gold is on the inside. A guy who will sleep with his partner, that'd be great. Who would sleep with his partner's wife, and basically takes money from everybody he meets in the film. But at the very end of it, a man's got a code. When a man's partner is killed, you're supposed to do something about it, and so he's going to do that.
Yeah, I like that. It's like, I will sleep with your wife, but I will also avenge you. So, or
you were a cad. You weren't treating your wife well. I'll sleep with her, but somebody shoots you, they're going down.
Hey, he's looking out for everyone.
Yeah, he's got to cover all the bases. Yeah. This movie was, I think, kind of a gamble. It's often referred to as the first noir. I guess you could challenge that here and there. Certainly the influences on film noir in America pre-existed, but, they were kind of taking a chance on this. John Huston at this point, would go on to be one of Hollywood's greatest directors, but hadn't directed a feature film. And Humphrey Bogart had been in a couple films. He'd been in a lot of films, but he'd mostly been a side guy and a supporting character actor and not really a lead. And so this was kind of a gamble for Warner Brothers.
That's funny to think about that, because he's clearly, between all the movies we've covered of his, he's like a star.
Oh, yeah.
He's pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. He walked out of this into Casablanca. Yeah, of course. In these two films, definitely helped cement his legend. I was doing a little research myself about just Bogey and this time period, and I thought it was interesting to see that Ingrid Bergman, before she began working on Casablanca with Bogey, watched the Maltese Falcon like a bunch of times because she wanted to get a sense of what he was going to be like, as a leading man, and what she would have to be playing against when they finally got on set for Casablanca. And I think that it's interesting that I think there's an argument to be made that Casablanca is somewhat noirish. I don't know if it fits in the film noir canon, but he does play a very similar character in that he's somebody who we can imagine. We don't know if Sam Spade has been betrayed or has been lost his ideals.
Definitely
in
cynical.
a specific way. Yeah, he's definitely has the same kind of cynicism, and yet when pressed, is going to do the right thing no matter what the cost at the end.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, in Casablanca, you get, I think, more like it hits harder in that one because you do get like the specific event that kind of made him so cynical and that person who was involved. Where with this, it's like new romance, you know what I mean? And so by the time they get to the end and he's talking about like, it's just not as like, that doesn't strike me as like, and maybe that's not important for like it being more noirish, but yeah, when he's like, I don't know if you love me and I love you, it's no hill of beans or whatever,
Yeah, right. Yeah. In one case, he's putting a lady on a plane, and in the other case, he's putting a lady on an elevator, and the elevator looks like jail bars, which I thought was a nice visual metaphor.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice little touches in this, for sure.
Like a lot of noirs, there's a really twisty story in this. You kind of go from event to event as Spade is unlocking the case and trying to figure out what's happening. And I've seen this movie probably 20 times, and I still couldn't necessarily tell you scene to scene when characters become aware of what's going on or get the knowledge of whatever.
It is a little tricky, I will admit.
Yeah. I did try to pay a lot of attention this time, and I did like the fact that it is written in such a way that pretty much everybody knows what's going on except for Sam Spade. And then what makes it kind of confusing is that, they don't. We know that Sam Spade is just kind of, I think at one point he criticizes for Bridget for sort of making it up as she goes, but really he's kind of making it up as he goes the whole time. Like he's the one who gets into a situation and he's like, okay, I know everything that's going on, but he doesn't know what's going on. And so they're talking about the bird and he's like, yeah, the bird. Okay. Yeah, the bird.
Right.
Yeah, tell me more about the bird. And he's just sort of killing time until people talk enough that he knows where he is.
As he's sort of peeling away the layers of what she's hiding, she just concedes that little bit, she's like, yes, that's actually it. And then it's that's his new understanding, but he could just keep going with it. You know what I mean? And then finally get there. But,
and plus when he deals with her, he figures out pretty early on, I guess after Archer is killed, hey Archer, that everything that she says is going to be a lie. So even just asking her questions doesn't really make any sense because she's just going to give him the next story. So he's got to act like he knows what's going on and just get her to sort of squirm until he can try to get something real out of her.
Right. And that's great. And it goes right up to the end where he's like, there's how could we ever believe each other? All they've ever done is lie.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's like, maybe you love me, maybe I love you. And she's like, if you love me or not. It's like, what is that going to make me do? I still don't know. You're a liar. It doesn't matter if I love you or not. Yeah.
Yeah. He presents all the outcomes, all the options.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he gives her the practical side too, which is like, all right, let's say that, I let this slide. Well, then you've got that hanging over me. And I don't know that you're not going to turn around and turn me in or stab me in the back. Like, look at it from your own sense of morality. Like, this clearly I have to do this no matter what.
Yeah. And I do agree with you. Like, I watched this twice, actually, because the first time I watched it, I was a little sleepy. And it was kind of a cozy movie, so I sort of dozed off. Yeah. So I watched it again, and I was like, "All right, I'm paying attention." And I was like, It's not like this is the most dense movie ever, but there are a lot of like people you meet, and stuff like that, and everyone kind of. I mean, they're all distinct and great characters, actually. Like those like main villains are all very distinct, but then some of the ancillary characters, I kind of like forget their deals, and then they're talking about like, oh, so and so said this, and I'm like, wait, who is he talking about? Like, don't remember, because they didn't stick out to me in the same way as like those some of the main bad guys did.
Yeah, there's one part that I always forget that always confuses me until they explain it, and that's where the guy, the ship captain, comes in and brings him like the titular
just, like, drops it.
Falcon. Yeah, and he just says, Falcon, and then he just falls down and dies. And then they get a call from Bridget, and she's like, "Oh my God, help! You got to go to this address." And he's like, "Okay." And so he's not in a hurry to help her, because he doesn't really believe her, I don't think. So he goes to the bus terminal, and he does the deal where he puts it in the safe deposit box and sends himself the ticket. And then he goes out to the address, and there's nothing there. And like, if I'm not paying attention, I'm just watching a guy take a cab to an empty lot and go, all right, and then get back in the car and then take off again. And of course, the whole point was they were trying to get him out of the office so they could get there and wait and, intercept the Falcon. But like, all that gets explained later, and you're like, okay, all right.
Right.
I guess that was necessary.
This is why they added voiceover to that one cut of Blade Runner, because they're like, people don't know what's going on.
Speaking of noir, yeah.
When it's probably better to just leave it as it is.
That's what my ex-wife called me, cold fish. Yeah.
I also was struggling to remember things because I was trying to like immerse myself a bit. So I listened to some audiobooks, and I watched I watched part of The Big Goodbye, or The Big Sleep, and I watched the movie The Long Goodbye, and so I was like, some of the things were starting to run together, I was like, okay.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, who is who? I was just like, especially because I didn't watch all of The Big Sleep, but it, it was Humphrey Bogart as well. So I was starting to confuse certain events in the movies.
Well, you're qualified to be on my podcast, The Goodbye Boys, which is all goodbye related entertainment material. No, you picked some good ones there. Yeah, of course, The Big Sleep, Philip Marlowe.
Yes.
And so is The Long Goodbye, which itself is a neo-noir, which sort of flies in the face of the characterization of Marlowe.
Big time,
of course, I won't ruin the ending, but yeah, that's Robert Altman was going in a different direction with that one.
That was the best one for me, because by the time
I love that movie. That's one of my favorite.
I loved it, but when I got to it, I was like, I don't. Yeah, it had those things where like the other ones, it's like it got a lot of people and all this stuff, and by the time I got to this one, I'm like, yeah, I know I'm kind of not gonna know what's going on. And that was actually kind of the point of that movie. It was like the whole time he's just like wandering around going like, what's going on? Like, I don't even feel like he's a detective in that movie.
Yeah. The Big Sleep is okay. I don't like it as much as Maltese Falcon, but I love The Long Goodbye.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I appreciated it. I appreciated all that. And just like, I just wanted to know a little bit more about that character, even though that's not who we're focusing on in this, but I knew it was like, that's kind of like the Dixon Hill inspiration. So I wanted to kind of get some of that,
Yeah. Yeah, that character is 70s Elliot Gould is who that is.
Yeah, right. That's exactly what they're going for. But in a way, he was like perfect for it.
We gotta do an Elliot Gould movie someday.
We do. Especially after watching this, I was like, Elliot Gould owns for sure.
We've done a Sutherland, but we haven't done an Elliot Gould one. Yeah.
We got to get it. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of the actors that are in this movie.
Yeah.
We've talked about Bogey, and we've talked about him a lot previously, so maybe we'll skip over him a little bit. But let's talk about Peter Laurie,
Yeah.
who plays Joel Cairo in this. And this is, of course, one of his iconic films when he came to America. He had been in Hollywood before this and had played some character roles, been in some smaller pictures. I don't know if you remember or have seen, I don't know why you'd remember, the commercial, the trailer for, I think it's 1936's Mad Love. You can look it up on the internet. It's a famous trailer that must have ran in movie houses where Peter Laurie is just chilling at home smoking a cigarette with his dog, and then his phone rings and he picks it up and it's a lady, and a lady has just called him, and he's like, "Oh, this is Peter Laurie." And she's like, "Oh, Mr. Laurie, I'd have to say that I loved you in M. You were fantastic. Tell me about your new project." He's like, "Oh, yes, well, I'll tell you." And it's just like that's how they sold movies back then, or at least that's how they sold this movie back then.
Okay, I'm looking that up now. Just
you could just call up old Pete, and he was reading the newspaper, and he'd talk to you about what he's going to do.
Oh my God. Okay, I love that. I'm pretty sure I've said this before, and I sort of hinted at this already, but like, yeah, another thing that I'm just more familiar with him through all the references, through like the Looney Tunes and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
And with this in Casablanca, I'm definitely a big fan. Like, he's kind of my favorite person in both these movies. I was like the weird character actor guys, you know?
Yeah. The Fritz Lang's M, which was a German film, is my favorite movie, and he is the star of that, and he is incredible in that film. Of course, he and Humphrey Bogart and Sidney Greenstreet were all ported right over to Casablanca.
Right, yeah.
Probably just got up from one stage on the Warner lot and then walked to another one and did that movie. I think we should probably talk in the sort of modern view that we have of films about the kind of homophobic coding that Joel Cairo has as a character. They make quite a meal out of the fact that his handkerchief smells like gardenia and his business cards. I've read Maltese Falcon, which is written in the 30s, and that is played up a little more. Of course, they probably couldn't do much in a movie with that, but you know, the bad guys are gay guys in this. You know, you've got the effete Gutman, you've got the beautiful smelling Cairo, and then you've got Elisha Cook's character, Wilmer, whose last name is Cook because I guess they're just lazy, and he's described both in the book and the movie as a gunsel, which, to people who are unfamiliar with, well, Yiddish slang, but also just the hard-boiled slang of a noir story, people just pick that up, and then you'll hear that in other movies as somebody who's got a gun. It means a thug. But it doesn't. It means a homosexual person, specifically like a weak homosexual person, a bottom, if you will.
Yeah, that line, I think, came up in The Big Sleep as well. And I think they ask him, like, aren't you one of those too, or something? I don't even remember.
Okay, all right.
And he's like, I am, but I'm different. And I thought it was because it was like meant some guy with a gun or something. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice some of that. Like, I didn't really notice. Like, I definitely like see that characterization in Joel Cairo's character or whatever, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even really think about it, but I totally can see that what you're going for. Yeah.
This kind of, well, they live in this kind of, you know, toxic masculine world, and you know, everybody's upset, but like Cairo starts crying, you know, when the Falcon is not what they thought. And even Elisha Cook, who Elisha Cook has probably been in more noir films than anybody in this cast. I think he's been in almost 30 noir films. And he played a lot of like killers and sort of hard men, but he has these like soft, you know, beautiful eyes, and he just looks like, especially at the end when they're talking about selling him out, like any second he's just going to be like, "Oh, no, please." So none of those men, of course, are the square jawed, stern Sam Spade.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I think some of that. Well, I guess the one the one term you were saying is like, that's like a homophobic slang term, or is it just okay? Because like in a way that I don't know, with at least with like Peter Lorre, it kind of makes his character more interesting. I think maybe it would be more if they made it now. It would be more obvious, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
I probably would. I don't think that's good necessarily. Like, it's, why can't Sam Spade be gay? But like definitely like making the character who doesn't present as straight also being villainous. That's an old trope.
Well, yeah, but in this, it's like we're really seeing only villains. So if some of them are gay, that's fine. I think the one guy is just classy.
Yeah,
I forget his name, but in my mind he's Eddie Redblock or whatever his name is.
Oh, right, from the episode. Yeah, Gutman.
Gutman, yeah.
Again, didn't work too hard on the character name, so that's okay.
Oh, sure, no.
Played by Sidney Greenstreet, who of course appears also in Casablanca, and this is his first film. At the age of 61, he had his first film in The Maltese Falcon. Yeah, before that, he was a stage actor.
Oh, okay.
And worked a lot on stage. But his first film out of the gate, and worked quite a lot after that until his death in 1954. So he got a lot of work in
right at the end.
Wow. Yeah, right at the end.
Well, yeah, he's great. He's great in this, and it's another thing where, like, okay, so the Joel Cairo is like, that's like a type of character that I feel like I've seen like parodies of that specific character. Like we even see that in the Trek episode, and I guess you get that with Gutman too. But I feel like this Gutman type persona is even more prevalent across multiple genres of just like, he speaks in all these like clever, aphorisms or whatever, and he's got all this weird code and all this stuff, and he's like a fancy guy. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if this is like the pioneer of that character, but you feel it so strongly here where he's just got all these little, catchphrases and stuff.
Yeah, and definitely, like, we don't get a sense of what Spade's life is like, outside of his job, other than he's, banging his partner's wife. But Gutman has that feel of like the European effete intellectual who is, definitely what we see in the film is a contrast to what Spade is as the kind of square-jawed guy who's going to punch somebody. And I think that fits. A lot of times movies, especially action movies, F9 is a great example, has Vin Diesel is a super badass. And so the guy he's up against is a super badass who's John Cena.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's no real contrast here. It's like they're the same guy. But all of his opponents in this are, people who have, different strengths or different outlooks. And the one guy who is a tough guy is not that tough of a guy. Like, he keeps disarming or punching out, Elisha Cook as we go through the movie.
Right. Yeah. I do think, like, even with you, like, said some of the like more stereotypical like portrayals, like, I do think at least like all the characters are treated like I don't know, they all do feel like real fleshed out characters and stuff to me. So like it even works, like even with like some of the female characters where they kind of, embody some of these like more these gender roles of the time. Like a lot of them still have like these very strong like character hooks and stuff like that. And I guess even so are like, kind of I noticed in a lot of these noirs that I've checked out, like they're the ones actually who did everything. Yeah.
Maybe
that's a bad thing, but I don't know.
Effie is like she should be like the third partner on the window, because she's she's doing all this work, and she's like, oh, I dropped off the wife, and she was dressed as she, like she had been out, and her slip was still warm, and he's like, okay, yeah, you're doing a good job. You're doing the detective work for me. Thanks.
Even one thing I liked was I'm bad with the names, but the woman who hired him initially, who was looking for the Falcon, like she was kind of driving this the whole time. I liked that she wasn't like as innocent as they play it off. You know, like I think in a lot of the parodies you see of stuff from this time, it is always like just like the crying widow or something like that, and it's like, don't worry, the old dame or whatever they call them. You know, it's like, we'll figure this out for you. But in like a lot of the ones I've checked out, like they're actually more active in the plot and like making their own independent decisions and doing things, you know. And I thought what was interesting in this one is she is sort of playing into the expectation of, well, she's a woman, like she couldn't really be all that dangerous, you know.
Yeah. And when you think about her plan, like once you have watched the whole movie and you can look back and understand like everybody's maneuverings, like she is like one of a trio of international thieves, basically. Like, I don't know what her skill set is. And so when she gets into town, the first thing she does is, I'm going to find some dumb PI to do all the work for me and hopefully kill this other partner of mine because I want him out of the way. And yeah, there's a lot going on that we don't know about. And she just plays this sort of dumb, you know, woman. And I think it's fascinating,
me, you know, she said,
yeah, please. Yeah. Be kind to me. And it's fascinating that as we revisited like this genre in like the 80s and 90s and did pastiches and stuff like that, nobody remembers that part. You're right. It is always the guy rolling his own cigarette wearing a fedora. And then there's just some dame on his arm and she isn't any part of the story at all. Whether she is the incredibly skilled and dedicated secretary or assistant, or the the femme fatale who set the whole thing off in the first place.
Yeah, like that's something I noticed in a lot of them is that like they are doing stuff, though. And sometimes it is just like they do their thing, but then they're like, "Hey, baby," you know. There's some of that for sure, but yeah.
Like when he goes to her hotel room and he's like, "How much money you got?" She's like, "Oh, $500. All right, give me all your money." And she tries to keep a little, and he's like, "No, give me the whole thing." Both because I think, he wants money, but also like I think that he's being practical because he's like, people want to kill you. I don't know if you're going to be alive the next time I see you, so I'm going to get paid now.
That's yeah. I like how money. Like the stakes all feel very important because it's like everyone's really worried about, and I know it's like the currency is different and everything, but everyone's really worried about like, $100 or something. And I'm like,
right,
this is actually relatable, that everyone's like broke or like whatever.
It's only at the end when Spade has been completely pulled into the entire plot and he goes to meet Gutman and he's kind of like overdriving. He's driving faster than his headlights here with like trying to make this deal. Hey, I've got the bird and don't worry about it. And at that point, Gutman's like, oh, it could be $100,000. It could be $250,000. He starts talking about these astronomical sums. But you're right. Up to this point, it's been like, $20 a day for expenses. That's what he's putting his life on the line for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You get the idea that like, he's not making a living off of this. And oh man, can I bring up wrestling? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, it makes me just think about how it's something that they kind of got away from it with WWE. It's more of a fantasy land, but like you get more of a sense in watching other wrestling that it's like these are these people's jobs, and you understand why someone would want to like win a wrestling match. It's because if you do better, you can get a better contract and you can make more money to like support yourself and your family. And I think, that's something, I don't know, that it just stuck out to me a lot in this movie that it's like, yeah, almost every scene they're talking about money. And it's like, yeah, that's what's driving everyone really is like the greed and not even just greed, but the need to survive. And then there's one guy who has a ton of wealth and he just wants this, thing to show off his exorbitant wealth or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Like he already has a ton of money. Like what does he need this for? But it's just this obsession for him. That's funny that you'd bring up wrestling because I've always, it's always fascinated me as somebody who, tried to make it as an actor for a long time, that wrestling is like, you've got the sort of acting side and you've got the performance side as well. And, it's not, here's a spoiler for everybody, wrestling is arranged. The winner is planned. And you could be somebody who doesn't, like, you could be a really good wrestler, but because you maybe don't have connections, or because the crowd doesn't know who you are just yet, you're just not going to win. And it doesn't really matter if you win or lose. Like, I'm sure if you look at some of the greats, The Rock or Hulk Hogan or whatever, their win-lose record is probably around 50%, because you have to get hit with a steel chair and you have to, get the screw job, and it all pays off at the event. But like, you could be somebody who's like really good and maybe even like really like personable and have a great character. And because of politics or because the Undertaker has to win for the millionth time, you're just not going to get that push. And I think with the advent of the internet and being able to get like extended feedback and not just the pop of a crowd, it's interesting to see how some promotions have sort of tied into that. Like, oh, people really like so-and-so, even though we haven't used him much. Maybe we could try to push him and do a little more with him.
Yeah.
Or her.
Yeah, you get some kind of like they almost get kind of like a meme effect around them.
Yeah.
I don't even mean that in like a totally stupid way, but And
it really helps some people. Then you've got people like The Rock, who is like, legacy basically, who comes out and is not, when he's Flex Kavana or whatever, he's not as seasoned as he would be later. And they push him and people hate him because they can tell that he's being pushed because of these reasons. And of course, he eventually did become a superstar and sort of worked his way into people's good graces. But it wasn't always easy at the beginning.
That ties back to the money thing, because it's like a lot of people you want to root for. It's because it's like you want to see them do well, when it's like, oh, this guy, he's like it's like industry plant, you know what I mean?
And people react to that. And then there's people like the opposite, people like Chris Benoit, who can't talk at all. Like, he's just not he can't do a promo, but he was just so intense and he was so good at what he did that people, the underground sort of enthusiasm and sort of grew for him until people were like, well, we got to make that guy, put that guy on the top card.
Yeah.
Well, we deserve to talk a little wrestling.
Sure.
We barely ever talk wrestling on the show. Yeah. I wanted to talk about Elisha Cook and the fact that he has been on Star Trek. He was in the episode Court Martial from the original series. He played the lawyer Samuel T. Cogley.
Oh, that was a pretty big role, right? He was like defending. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great episode.
And he's been in a million films. He was in a million TV shows. He had like a 60 year career, and he always plays, I don't know, like he played different kinds of characters, but it's that kind of even by the time it's 20 years later and he's in Star Trek, right? Or I guess it's 25 years.
Yeah.
And so he's aged a lot, but he's still got those kind of expressive eyes that sort of like tell you a lot about what the character's thinking.
Mm. Yeah, I love the crossover always. Yeah.
Now, of course, this isn't a Paramount film, so nobody's ever going to talk about Maltese Falcon on Enterprise or anything like that. They're not going to watch it for movie night, but they can use it as an inspiration for a Star Trek noir.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's this because. I don't know. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but it's like that episode takes the title from those Marlowe books, but when you're watching it, it's like, and you watch it back to back to this, it's like, maybe it is because some of the things is like these tropes, some of the tropes are in like all those types of stories, but some of it's like, no, this is just, they're doing that for sure.
Yeah. This is so iconic, even though there would be many, many noirs after this for years. This really stands as kind of the one to beat. And I think when you decide to do a sci-fi pastiche of something like this, that is literally within the universe of the world, a pastiche. It is a fake holodeck program that these people go to play in. they're talking. There's a big fat boss who's looking for an item. There's a guy with a gun who's like, "Let me kill them." Like that. That's what you're doing because it's so recognizable.
Yeah. Like I was saying, it's like the first time I ever saw that Trek episode, I knew, all these references, even though I'd never seen the Maltese Falcon. So
right.
yeah, it's just obvious way to go.
Something that's a little different in this world of the 40s is that when you're white, you can just tell the police that you were kidding, and then they'll go away.
Right.
It was kind of interesting.
So there's something very Trek-like about a lot of the situations in this, where it's just like, and I can see like why Captain Picard would be like influenced by a character like this, where it's like there is a lot of just like talking your way out of situations, like yes. Just explaining that happens at the end too with even this love thing, but we're like, we just explain the logic of the whole situation and then we move forward. It's like we've just said everything, so we don't even need to go through it all and do it because I've laid out what's going to happen. And so he totally does that in a lot of situations, which is like part of the fun of it. But it is funny when it's like, oh, you can just talk to the cops. You can like own the cops with facts and logic, and they'll go away.
Yeah, there's been 3 murders, and the cops look at Spade with suspicion. I don't know what's happened in the past between them. And then they're at his house and people are trying to kill each other. And he's like, we got you. Oh, it's just a little prank that we're playing. Yeah. Okay, you can go home now.
That would be like in the in a modern interpretation, they're just getting like taken to the ground right away,
Yeah, right. Yeah, everybody's getting bear maced. Yeah, they're all going. Yeah, even going downtown.
Yeah, for sure. I mean that happened. I know we're not talking about this, but that happened more in the Long Goodbye movie when they arrest Elliot Gould. He does get a little bit. They do reference that a little bit more. He's not friends with the cops like the classic PI archetype is,
Right. And also something that would become a staple of noir is the hero getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
We don't see. I mean, Spade is on top of every situation that he's in this film. He's always the one holding cards, or at least bluffing that he's got the cards. But you would see in a lot of other films, it's customary for the hero to take a beating.
It does. I mean, one thing it does play into, and it even comes into the Trek episode, is that there is this sort of adversarial relationship with the cops, even when they let him go in that one scene where they're getting in the way, he's getting in their way, they're getting in his way, and he's supposed to be kind of this character who's like on the edge of, on their side and on the good guy side, and it does have that morally gray of like, are any of these people good? Even the cops, a little bit. Like you do kind of get the sense of like some of them are just doing their job, but you also sort of get the sense that Marlowe's sort of trying to do right at times, or like bring real justice and not whatever the police are doing. There's definitely obviously like the money influence though makes it kind of a gray area, but he's trying to do right by his partner and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's significant, I think, that in a film where, every minute of the film, like I said before, like everybody he meets, he's cleaning out their wallets, he's extorting money out of them.
Yeah.
And then in the very end, he takes the grand from Gutman, and as soon as Gutman's gone and the cops come, he hands the grand over and calls it a bribe. So I don't know if that is his essential goodness at the end, or if it's a trade for like, no, I'm doing that. This is because of my partner. This is the right thing to do. Like if in another situation he would have kept the money, but he does give the money back at the end.
Yeah, I did sort of get the thing of like, this will look worse for them.
Yeah,
if you're trying to...
we'll put bribery on top of the murder and everything else. Yeah, conspiracy.
yeah, they definitely do try to present it as. That's one thing I like about it, is that it isn't like so clear of like, here's the good guys and the bad guys or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm
trying to think of I'm trying to think of, obviously there are modern noir films, and I'm trying to think of if they, if you can tell the police to fuck themselves in modern noir films the way that you could in 40s noir. And like, you know, when they make modern noir films, they're often something like the Long Goodbye, where they are set ostensibly in the 70s because there are topless yoga people, but it's like a, you know, kind of a 40s world. And what I thought of was, we were talking about James Bond before. There's a movie called Layer Cake from the year, I think 2004, which is one of Matt Vaughn's first films. And one of his only good films, in my opinion, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Now he's just doing the Kingsman stuff. But it stars Daniel Craig, and it's about Daniel Craig plays a character whose name we never learn. But he is he's not a drug dealer, but he's like a drug supplier. Like, he processes cocaine and he sort of gets rich off of that, but he doesn't really think of himself as a criminal. And he gets pulled into this criminal conspiracy where his bosses are, you know, doing bad things. And he has to... Colin Meaney's in that.
I was about
too.
to say, I haven't seen it, but I think I've watched his scenes.
Yeah, it's really good.
I really
and
want
it's
to
that
see
same.
it.
It ticks all those boxes where there's a femme fatale who isn't really she doesn't not as much agency as we were talking about before, but there's a femme fatale in it. He gets the shit kicked out of him, and there's also, it's kind of a fun hangout movie because he's got this cast of characters who either kind of work for him or his associates who are all. It's not quite a heist movie, but they're all kind of pulling off these things, trying to get ahead of all the bad things that are happening. But that's like an example of, and then it's also like completely morally ambiguous, except, and I won't ruin the ending certainly seems to suggest a moral force in the universe, or it's all a crapshoot. Who knows? Okay.
Yeah. It's high on my list because I don't know, I'm trying to see more, Colin Meaney movies. Not Daniel Craig. No, he's cool too, but
yeah, far and away just kicked off something in you.
It's been a long held desire, actually.
We also see, you know, in the last scene, the contrast between Spade and the criminal element, in that he is playing them, he is pretending to be one of them, he is pretending to conspire with them, but really he is maneuvering everything to get the best outcome and the most justice. You know, he basically like sells them on selling out, you know, one of their conspirators. He's like, well, here's an idea. We need a fall guy, so let's make it this guy. I don't like him, but also he's the guy with all the guns. So if I can get him to, whether or not they want to really do this plan or not, he will get agitated enough that I'll have an excuse to like knock him out and take the guns away, and then I have power in the situation. And at first Gutman is like, no, we're not going to do that. We don't do that. But later on he's like, I'm listening. And finally he's essentially like, well, sorry, dude, we're going to do this. You know, you understand. What does he say? He says, you know, you're like a son to me, but sons can be replaced.
Yeah. It's like, it's something that I like about this character, where it's like, well, one, they always do like I said, these kind of like clever, like, oh, I think this, and then they have some type of like, oh, isn't that so clever that I think this way? When it's really like, is it? I don't know if it is. But then also like, yeah, they have this like funny moral code, you know, they always do, where it's like, yeah, this guy is like my son, but I will sell him out.
Yeah, right. I've been looking for this Falcon for a long time. That's my real son.
Yeah, it's like a total, I don't know, like, it's almost like they do come off as like clever in a way, but like also their whole persona seems like kind of like a persona they've built for themselves is a little fabricated. Like, you're kind of dumb a little bit too.
Yeah, right. Like, they're all affected, you know, it's an act. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, Cairo is just a hood, but he's a good smelling hood with a nice cane, you know, and Gutman is, you know, he's a hood as well, but he's a hood who's like, you know, well, I know all this about history, and that's why this thing is important, not because it's worth a lot of money or it's just this obsession that I have. Like, don't you know, right, my boy?
It makes sense. No one is who they say they are. Except for maybe
Effie.
Yeah.
Effie's just a hardworking secretary.
Yeah, she's the only one who's really a good guy, I feel like. Yeah. She's great.
I like that the ex-wife like is staking out his apartment and then she calls the cops on him. So it's even the woman that's supposed to love him and that he has this relationship with is like, no, are you sneaking around on me?
Yeah, and it's like, we're having an affair here.
Right. What do you think we're doing? This is inherently dishonest, what we're doing.
Yeah, it does. So like, it has that sort of thing of like, you see the lies people kind of tell to themselves to make them feel better, you know?
Yeah.
And that's relatable. I feel like that's a part of humanity that you have sometimes, like trying to rationalize things, you know, that it's not until later where you're like, oh, I was not acting smart in this situation, you know?
And it's something that I think that we don't often see in the world of Star Trek, which is something that we should talk about.
Yes.
So let's do that. Hey, you know, I'm a man who likes talking to a man who likes to talk. But at this point, let's take a break for a word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more backtracking.
Okay, Caliban, are you prepared to take your Sailor Noob graduation quiz?
Nikan Hana, I'm so prepared for this. I learned fluent Japanese.
Impressive.
Arigato gozaimasu.
First question. The hero of Sailor Moon is Usagi Tsukino. What does Usagi mean in Japanese?
Rabbit.
Correct.
Yes.
Next question. As Sailor Moon, Usagi and the Sailor Scouts live and go to school in what Tokyo neighborhood?
Easy. Azubu Juban.
That's right. One more correct answer and you'll no longer be a Sailor Noob. The human form of the Cardian Leshy is tasked by Aelin Ann to gather life energy. What Japanese historical period are Leshy's human forms closed from?
What?
I'm sorry, the answer was the Heian period. Bacana! Better luck next time. But for all the answers, listen to Sailor Noob, where we discuss the food, fashion, and culture of Sailor Moon. Wherever you get your podcasts.
Watashi wa hazukashi. Okay, we're back. It's time to talk about the Trek side of this equation. At first glance, it would make sense that the people of the Federation would have no interest in hard-boiled detective fiction. The brand of violence, sex, and illicit deeds on display in the noir genre would probably be detestable to the enlightened citizens of the 24th century. And they don't even own TVs. But nevertheless, Captain Picard is the galaxy's biggest Dixon Hill fan and voluntarily chooses to cosplay as the 20th century detective in his free time, getting the same vicarious thrills from walking on the wild side as did his 20th century creators and the audience that continues to enjoy Trek today. Because after all, a 20th century historian is just a guy with a blockbuster card. Picard steps into the wingtip shoes of his favorite gumshoe hero in the first season Star Trek The Next Generation episode, The Big Goodbye.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Ready for San Francisco, Mr. Whalen?
Captain Picard visits the holodeck for an adventure to the past.
Something's gone wrong.
Everyone inside could vanish.
A mysterious malfunction threatens their journey.
This is not a game. Give me the gun.
Trapping them in a real-life murder mystery.
Shall I kill him? No. Kill the woman.
On Star Trek The Next Generation.
This is one of those that I had, that I taped off of TV, when I was in single digits and then just watched 100 times when I was a kid. So for me, this is so natural. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at the time, it made sense. But I could see Star Trek fans tuning into this episode, either TOS fans or new TNG fans, and being like, what the hell is going on here? What is this?
Right. That happened when we covered it on my old podcast, Existence is Futile.
Yeah.
It was more so with Mary. She kind of had issue with it because it's introducing the holodeck, So it...
Yeah.
It's not like later episodes where it's like we kind of just are like doing the thing. This is...
Yeah.
But it really struck me on this rewatch how good it is, because it's like it is just people like fascinated by this story, by this, they're not even like really role playing or whatever. They're just like kind of like, wow, isn't this crazy? And then all of it's just kind of like happening to them. So I can kind of see why that would be disappointing, because it's like you're not solving a mystery. They're just going like, wow, this is wild. But I guess what kind of like, even though it's not like the main, I don't know if there's like a main point of the episode, but like it's not the main thing. It reminded me a little bit of Darmok, where it's what's really fascinating about it is just these characters kind of like witnessing their cultural past, you know what I mean, and kind of being like in this one they're just kind of like dazzled by it. They're just like, oh, this is cute, you know, the whole time. Until someone gets shot, of course.
Yeah, it would be really easy for them, and maybe this, just flipping through my 800 episode Rolodex, maybe this exists in some other Star Trek episode, but like it'd be easy for this to be Captain Picard is naturally a fan of Ivanhoe, and so they walk into the holodeck and it's, you know, the 13th century, and they're like, oh, the horses and the knights are so real. Like it could just be that, but yeah, but you're right. Like specifically, it is like they are fascinated with this. This specific period, which, you know, in the 80s, this was, 40 years away? I guess that's not that far. But if you told me in the 80s that there was a magic box I could go into and I would be inside of a Dashiell Hammett novel, I'd be like, wow, this is amazing.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's like, we talk about this a lot, where it's like the specific creator's influence is obviously what they're going for. Yeah. And that carries over into Deep Space Nine. I feel like everyone likes, like Odo's reading like pulp crime novels and stuff too.
He's reading Mike Hammer novels. Yeah. There's the extra level of they don't own TVs and they haven't seen the Maltese Falcon, and so for them it's not just automobiles, but it's also like, wow, it's like we're, you know, 400 years in the past, and like who's Tommy Dorsey and what's chewing gum and all these things. So we get to, as the audience, we get that dramatic irony that has really been drained out of Trek at this point, where we know more than these amazing characters in the future. Now, that bleeds off, maybe because, well, I think that bleeds off a lot because I don't think people want dumb heroes or ignorant heroes anymore. So, you know, Ensign Tilly knows all the songs of David Bowie or whatever. You know, there's a lot more cultural intelligence for Trek heroes in the future. But I miss that idea where Halloween, like, what's that?
Yeah, there's some things where it's like, you really wouldn't know this, or like sometimes it's like, why would you know this? But
yeah, it's but now like Bashir's going in and he's like, you know, singing with you know, the Dean Martin in the casino or whatever, and he's like, yeah, you know, 60s casino,
right?
It'd be easy. I can imagine a character in Trek being like, what are you talking about? What is that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they do that sometimes. It's like a fine line, because sometimes I can't even put my finger on it, you know, like why I find one specific thing annoying and another one not, you know?
Yeah. And maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just the crew of the Enterprise D. Like maybe the rest of the Federation is like binge watching Friends on Starflix or something like that. But for some reason, Captain Picard, a man who likes dusty artifacts and things like that, and Dr. Crusher, who's been, you know, a single mother, who's, you know, a very successful doctor. Maybe just they don't know about this. And then Data, a robot, like they don't know about this stuff. But yeah, you see that like this only works because they don't know anything about this world. Whereas I can't possibly see, I know you've got a character like Tom Paris, but a character in Voyager or something like that, they're going to understand what a film noir is. They're going to understand, you know, like what a TV is. You can't do like a Sonny Clemens type thing with them.
Yeah. I also just think it's like, it is because it is kind of introducing this new technology. So, but I like that actually kind of creates a fun thing, because like, I think I said this back on Existence is Futile, but it feels like your grandma playing Wii bowling for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
And they're just like, whoa, you know, like, like they've essentially entered a role-playing game, and they're going to act like a bunch of old people playing a role-playing game for the first time, where they're a little like, they're like at the moment kind of too self-conscious to really take it seriously as like a real thing, you know?
Right.
And
but later
it becomes very real.
Yeah, but later we see, that in DS9 they just dive in head first, and like Miles and Julian are being Beowulf or fighting the Battle of the Bulge or something like that.
Well, yeah, because at that point the Wii's been out for 10 years now. Wii Sports is a phenomenon, so everyone's playing it.
There's a couple in the first season. There's a couple episodes where they mention that the holodeck is getting upgrades. So presumably they've had something. I mean, this is all in a cocked hat now because in Discovery, they've got in the 23rd century they've got holograms and all this stuff, and whatever, it doesn't really matter. But like presumably they've had holographic environments before that were non-interactive, but like now, the Enterprise D is the Cadillac of the fleet, and so it's got all the best stuff, and so they get the upgrades, and you can go in and like people will interact with you, and apparently the holodeck is programmed to hit on you, even though you're just minding your business.
Right? Yeah.
It's an immersive experience.
It really is, like that whole first season, because with like Minuet too, like Picard comes in and they're just talking about like how cool is this,
right.
Yeah.
I asked her a question and she didn't say, I'm not programmed to answer that. She was like, oh, well, tell me about the thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit like messing around with your, like, Siri or something, and asking it, like, fart jokes or something.
Yeah. I'd have to imagine, and I know that they are more advanced than us. They live in a completely different world that is free from all the depredations of capitalism and want and greed and war. But I'd have to imagine that the first couple iterations of this technology, things might have got a little weird. Like I've been playing Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, you're talking glitches.
The video game. Oh, glitches, yes, definitely glitches. You can imagine some holodeck glitches and how inconvenient that would be.
That's all it is.
But like 2077, posits a world that is just basically like, what if the 1980s went through a time portal and just became the 2070s, right? Where nothing has evolved politically, like it's still America and Russia and all this stuff. And people have virtual worlds. They have the ability to like edit their memories and have virtual experiences. And it's all sex and violence. It's like, killing somebody with your dick. It's like everything just turned up to 11. There must have been a period where they had to kind of get through that, right? Because by the time you get to Barclay and he's like presumably sleeping with and like sword fighting his coworkers, people look at that and go, oh, no, we don't do that. But the first couple times somebody stepped into a holodeck, whatever version it was, there had to be like, well, I'm just going to cut everybody's head off and see what happens there. Like that's just the way that gamers are. They just test the limits of everything.
And I think, I don't know. I think that's, I don't know. I don't think they get rid of that because I think they do reference that a couple times of like, Well,
Worf definitely is killing Skeletors left and right. We know that.
Worf's got his programs. They talk about how Miles and Julian are always recreating famous battles. I actually think Star Trek often makes a very pro gaming. Violent gaming is a great way to get out your anger because even I just watched The Killing Game with the Hirogen, and that's the whole premise of the episode is they could be playing Grand Theft Auto or whatever and get it all out, and they don't have to be these murderous, evil dudes.
Maybe that's their secret. Yeah.
Trek is pro-violent gaming.
You had a hard day. Geordi's been riding you all day in engineering, and then you just go and you just shoot a bunch of Geordies in the holodeck.
I do think, they do draw a line where they're like...
Or a bunch of guys that look suspiciously familiar. Like that guy that they sent to the conference instead of Geordi.
I think you mentioned the Barclay thing. Like, I think actually that might be one of the like early cases of it where they're like, okay, we need to like maybe have some like rules and regulations in place about who you can load up, Right.
Because
then by the time they get to like Quark's trying to do it to Kira, and it's like a big no,
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know if that's illegal in Ferengi space, but certainly in Federation space. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they probably call it Barclay's Law.
Barclay's Law. Poor guy. He's got a law named after him for sex predators.
For being a little pervert. Yeah.
I wanted to mention a couple guest stars in this episode. Of course, we get Dick Miller in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
Always good to see Dick Miller, who's done a couple other Star Treks.
And the other things we've done. He's just all over. He's a legend.
Yeah, he's the Zelig of 20th century cinema. Also, Lawrence Tierney appears as Cyrus Redblock, and that's significant in a way because Lawrence Tierney is one of the classic film noir actors, a guy who has been in a ton of films, really cut his teeth on early gangster films and later noir films. Probably one of his most famous appearances was in the movie Born to Kill from 1947, which is an excellent movie, an excellent noir. And so, perennial tough guy, Lawrence Tierney. Recognizable probably to fans as Big Joe from Reservoir Dogs.
Yes, and is he in other episodes of Star Trek? I feel like I saw him in something recently, or maybe I'm imagining it.
I don't know. I don't think so, but he might be. I don't know.
Yes, he was in Deep Space Nine. I think I just watched Business as Usual. Quark's like dealing with him. He's like an arms merchant, and they're like, it's when Quark has to decide like, is he going to help him do a genocide?
Right.
Yeah, he's like the guy they got to deal with. He's kind of the same sort of guy in that.
He's a crime boss.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If they had made that Daredevil movie in the 70s with David Bowie's wife,
what? I didn't know about this.
Oh yeah, look it up. They could have got Lawrence Tierney to play Kingpin.
He'd be so good for that. Yeah.
So I think that it's I mentioned before in my opening that it's. It might be weird that it's not weird. I don't think that they want to cosplay or experience this amazing technology. It's the fruits of, the 24th century. But this specific time period is interesting. And I wonder what it is that Picard likes about noir fiction and about Dixon Hill in particular, outside of the fact that Tracy Torme, one of the writers behind the episode, likes that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I think it is that thing I mentioned earlier of like he likes to like give it, you can like kind of talk your way out of a lot of these situations,
Yeah,
and
he, in a lot of ways, he's like the absolute worst person to do this kind of thing because when you think about how duplicitous. Sam Spade has to be, even as he's decrying duplicity in other characters, he's constantly fronting and lying about things. And Captain Picard is a guy who's just like, will walk into a situation and go, yeah, this is what it is. This is the truth. It's important.
I think Picard, though, there are certain episodes where it's like, he has to, like, I just think of like even smaller situations, like when he had to do a Die Hard where he's like, I'm Mott, the barber, he knows like when you need to lie, you know what I mean? And,
right.
And then, so there's that element, and there is this element of where he can sometimes truthfully lay out the whole situation. And that's just enough for like Romulan he's facing off against to be like, all right, whatever, I'm not going to deal with this,
Yeah,
and I think that happens like with the cops in that movie where he's like, "This is all bogus. We were joking around and whatever."
Yeah, well, it reminds me of the Maltese Falcon because like the one time that Sam really is forthcoming and tells the truth is when the cops, come into the apartment. Because they hear Cairo screaming. And I think Bridget attacked Cairo because she wants the cops to run in and take him away. But once Sam goes like, oh, we're just kidding. Here's what's going on. And he actually like basically tells exactly what is going on here.
Yeah.
That this guy is threatening them over this thing. And it like, but he does it because he knows that the cops will take him away. Like he tells the truth to like serve his own purposes, but it is the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Picard can kind of see into that. He just is like, I don't know, because he seems to like, you see it over and over where he's like is very interested in the past. I mean, he's really into archaeology or whatever, but also like he talks about building ships in the bottle, and like he's like into Shakespeare, and like he's like, oh, I gotta brush up on my Gilgamesh, and like I think he's like, even though it's like clearly they aren't these types of characters that embody this, I think he sees the value of looking back on these sort of things, even when the characters in them maybe don't line up with your current moral, viewpoint of how people should be. Like there's a value in that art. So I think that's I could totally see that working for him.
Yeah, and art is escapism for everybody. There's a great example of Captain Janeway, a very powerful woman who has to tell people what to do all day, and then on her break time she goes into a Victorian novel where she's like a governess of children,
right, and
gets ordered around.
And you even see Beverly getting into it a little bit here, where like this guy's just kind of like hitting on her, and she's trying to like she's like, oh, and she's trying to like align with these sort of like cultural norms at the time. And
right,
and you can see,
I refuse to believe that she doesn't know what makeup is, but it's still a cute scene.
Yeah, she's clearly wearing makeup in every episode, but yeah, just the idea of like, well, apparently people know what gum is. I've learned that because I just watched the Deep Space Nine too, where they were like, the Take Me Out to the Holosuite, where they're like,
right,
they chewed.
He gets the
Scotch gum. Yeah. No one knows what gum is in the future, apparently. They stopped watching TV and chewing gum.
Yeah, right. The two pillars of American society. Yeah, I love when she's like, why aren't we all being interrogated?
Yeah, you can tell she, like, there's something interesting with her character in this that I feel like that she normally doesn't get. Like, I don't know, where, like, you just see her kind of, like, having fun a lot more than normal.
Yeah, and of course this is early on, so they're still really playing up the romance, like, or the potential romance between her and Picard. Like when he asks her to see the office, and they're going to leave, and then Data and the historian are like, "Hey, we want to come along." They were going to go do it in the office, right? Like that's what was going to happen.
Right.
Like, they were
it's a real
going to have a private moment.
Will they? Won't they? Set up. I feel like they should have gone with it more.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll bring her back for the new season of Picard. We'll see. I want to talk about being interrogated in the holodeck, which is something that they want to do for fun. Hey, people in our world, do all kinds of things that are sort of harmful for fun. What happens? Like, can they punch you or something? All we see is like the guy yelling at him, but like, can you set the punches so they only hurt a little bit or something?
Yeah.
Like, can you get braced in a holodeck?
There has to be something like that, because it's like they do have the like safety protocols, so
sure, yeah,
I wonder what it is.
Which spectacularly fail in this. I would argue that even if the safety protocols fail, maybe don't have in your program like that bullets could kill you or shoot you or whatever.
Right.
Maybe it's like Westworld where they just hit you and you go, ow.
It's probably one of those things. Okay, so I'm imagining someone programming this and they're like, okay, we got it working. We got the bullets to shoot, Yeah, the gun is real. It's not a prop gun. We put real guns in this. Now, don't worry. There are these safeties. And unless, I don't know, like an alien probe scans the ship, it's going to be fine. But like, this gun is a real gun. Yeah.
Like, why? Like, if you went back to 1944 and you're like, we're at the Trinity bomb test. Now, this bomb is real. This is a real atomic bomb the computer has made. There's safeties. Don't worry about it. It's not going to go off. But this is a real bomb. Like, why would you do that?
It just feels like sometimes when you're programming something,
you got to go all the way.
Well, no, it's like you start like daisy chaining like things together to make it work. You know what I mean? They're like, okay, we got the guns to shoot, but oh no, they kill people. What do we do? And it's like, maybe it's the thing. Hold on. Maybe it's the thing where if they take away the bullets, then like it actually sets off like a chain reaction in the code that they can't undo, and it breaks the whole program. So they're like, okay,
we got to leave that in.
We got to put this feature then that makes nothing hurt you. Hopefully that doesn't go wrong,
So you're saying that like Wayland getting shot is like the hot coffee of this program. Like this code is already in there. We're going to remove access to it so nobody can see like these awkward sex scenes and Hillary Clinton won't get mad. But we're going to leave that in the program. It's too much work to take that out of the program.
Yeah. Oh my God. And that means like for these, like, people can eventually learn like glitches and exploits and start like
Sure.
speed running. Well, that actually does happen in some episodes where they like start speed running a program. But I would love to see more. They should just make a holodeck show.
Holodeck hacking.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be its own.
Hack the deck. Hack the deck.
It could be in its own world. We don't even need spaceships or anything. I just want to see I guess that's Gamer. The movie Gamer.
Oh, God, Gamer. Gamer and the Game. Oh, we already did the game. Too bad. Yeah, we've talked about the holodeck in the show before. I think something that comes up a lot is what your life would be with this technology in it. Because, okay, so there's like very advanced video games now. We've got, VR and Oculus, but those are all things that you can, turn off. And so if you've got this thing where you can go into it and it's not supposed to break, like you're supposed to be able to leave whenever you want, but it could break. And then while you're there, it seems so real. I would imagine that one of these other things that people would have to get over with the, cutting Jordy's heads off thing would be the parasocial relationship that you would have with the characters. People can fall in love with video game characters, anime characters, and waifus and things like that. I mean, you could just literally have somebody that you saw, and you could have other relationships. You could have, a significant other, but then also just have your holodeck significant boyfriend or girlfriend that you go and spend time with.
Well, yeah, and I think you're just pitching other episodes too, because I feel like they did do that. Barkley, they sort of did that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they even get
but it's so, and you already talked about Barkley's Law, but like it's in that episode, and I know that episode's 30 years old now, but it's just like treated with such like disdain. People are so mortified by this that I wonder what the threshold was in the past where something happened where people were like, all right, we can't, that's not cool. That's fallen out of favor. But at some point, everybody would have like an entire holodeck family, like the Doctor.
Yes. Yeah. Like the Doctor tries it out. I think one thing that benefits it is kind of developed in this society that's like, a little bit more well off. Like we've talked before about how they have a lot of these features that could be used in a bad way to like violate people's security, and it does definitely happen in some episodes, like just being able to ask where someone is at any time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like we're led to believe like 99% of the time this society they've built uses these things justly, whereas like we are seeing that sort of technology now, and it's obviously not being used in any sort of good way. And I feel like that's coming with this Oculus stuff. I feel like they're gonna strap us in, and we're gonna be like mining Bitcoin on our Oculus rigs or something. Like the Matrix is gonna happen. Like that's the evil version of like the holodeck, is they put everyone in the Matrix. Like those are our two like potential outcomes, I think, with this sort
digital real estate in the metaverse is already exists.
Exactly. So like in our world, it's like okay, in Star Trek they create this and it's like, oh, it's great, we can do whatever we want. But in like our current world, it's like, oh yeah, this is great, we can like sell things in here too,
Yeah. I don't want to give them any ideas, but the problem that I see with that is that people's interest in anything doesn't last forever. And so I can't do anything about the fact that I have a body. Like I have a body, I have to feed it and take care of it. But like if you give me a virtual body, it's like Second Life proved this. I think it's fun to like fly around and do stuff for a while, but unless you're really invested in this, or it becomes expensive or inconvenient to use, then people are going to drop out.
Yeah.
So you can sell, for thousands of dollars, they're already selling, digital real estate on metaverse servers, and it'd be fun to go there. But once it becomes like a pain to do it, or it just sort of like isn't cool, or it's just sort of boring, you're not going to do it anymore. And I think the fact that everything is driven by capital in our world, makes that a problem. In their world, none of this, they don't need to steal your information because you can't do anything with it unless there's there's just no way to make any money off your information. So hopefully they would be free of that, but who knows?
Yeah. I think the way they can make it happen in our world, and I don't want to give any ideas, well, it's what they're already trying to do, is just you make it so ubiquitous. It's kind of like, it used to be like, you used to be a person who could be like, I don't like smartphones, I'm not going to have a smartphone. It's like, now you cannot exist in America without one. Like, it's just required for so many jobs. It's required for my job. It's required to shop at my job, basically. And so they make that ubiquitous. So I'm sure someday they'll be like, what if the only way you could watch movies, play games, talk to your friends and family is in the metaverse? You know, like that's their end goal. It's to like just get everyone on board somehow. Yeah. Where it's like, not just like, oh, you get tired of being in the Second Life, but that's just where you have to be when you're not, I don't know, pissing and shitting, I don't know.
Or you just get a catheter and go to town.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I see phones changing, getting smaller, doing other things. I don't see like phones going away anytime soon, but who knows? Elon's already working on just a few more chimps. I only need a few more chimps to make this brain implant work. So, yeah.
Yeah, they haven't done that. That's one they never try to do in Star Trek, I feel like. They're like, anytime someone's putting a chip in your brain, it's bad news in Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. It always has to go bad. I guess I'd say the character of what's her head? I can't remember the character's name, but the character Discovery who has like a brain implant. The redheaded character.
Yes. I know her name. It's bothering me.
That doesn't seem. I like what she's got because that doesn't seem to be a problem. She had a traumatic brain injury and then they just fixed it, and she's got a different colored eye, which you think they could probably take care of. But otherwise, it's like, she's just got a thing. It isn't like, Seven's cortical implant is malfunctioning, so we've got an episode like every other week.
That's true. That's the good chip in head representation.
The good chip. We need more good chip in head representation.
Yeah, they scared everyone with the data emotion chip,
Yeah.
Like, you start freaking out.
Show me some of these. Show me some happy chimpanzees, man. Come on.
Yeah, they're working for each other here because they got to like shout out Elon Musk, and he's like, now make the chip in head look good.
Yeah. I like that Data's in this solely for the lamp bit, which is an all-time classic Star Trek bit. But it does kind of complicate things a little bit, because at this point, maybe we haven't completely settled on Data's complete bulletproofness, which we do get in First Contact. So really at any time, he could just stand there until they empty their guns into him and do whatever. Also, at the end of the episode, after they've already got the door open and Felix and Red Block are evaporated, Data just takes the gun away and Supermans it and then just punches him. And it's like, that couldn't have happened at any other time.
Sure.
Or he couldn't just literally tear through the bulkhead and just get them back into like the ship proper.
Yeah. Though I never thought of it while watching. So.
No, you don't, though. Yeah, that's why it works.
But that totally actually makes sense. He is like superhuman. Like, none of this should be a problem.
He could just squish these guys into geometric shapes and like, we don't have a problem.
And in fact, they end up like making use of this when they do like Fistful of Datas, where it's like, yeah, we've got a bunch of like Supermen.
Oh, right. Fight. Yeah. We're locked in here, and because of the rules, he is just Data, so he's invulnerable. There's nothing we can do to him. Yeah.
Like, dang, why did we make that possible? Yeah.
It seems like after the Captain Picard incident, we should have fixed all that, but here we are.
It's very clear, like I said, that they are like writing the laws on this as they go, because they accidentally make a sentient guy later.
Yeah.
And then you would think, okay, we're not going to do that again, but then they do make like Vic Fontaine, like it should be illegal to make Vic Fontaine after what happened with Moriarty. But in that, it's like, yeah, no problem, he's fine. He
likes living in the holodeck.
Yeah, we made one who likes it.
That's the goal. Yeah, like I like your idea of a holodeck show, but I don't know what it would be, because clearly they didn't field test any of this stuff. So
it would be a holodeck law show where like every episode they're dealing with the weird malfunction that happened.
Yeah. LA Law, but in the holodeck. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they didn't do any QA on this.
Yeah, there would be one like in the Killing Game, like for some reason, like the holodeck can make B'Elanna pregnant. So that could be like one episode where it's like, well, something malfunctioned and now like she's just pregnant with a holo baby.
Yeah, that's weird.
And then they have to have like a custody battle or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, also, so she's holodeck pregnant, but like the Herodian rewrote their memories. So they must have like told her that she was pregnant too. Otherwise she'd be like, why am I pregnant? What?
Yeah, when she realizes shit, they do. I don't know. They acknowledge it, and she's like, it sucks, and I'm heavier. But it's like, it's a holo? I guess, yeah, they do have matter, I guess. I don't know.
It just projects a belly on you, I guess.
But yeah, that's my pitch.
Look, people in the future have to be used to. Yeah, people in the future have to be used to a lot of stuff that we don't know about.
Sure, yeah.
So I think that I buy that these enlightened people would enjoy this kind of down and dirty fun. I did want to point out, though, one element of the episode, which I think is interesting and I think is really, it's not explicit. And I think you kind of alluded to earlier, like, what is this episode really about? But like, I don't think it has to be about anything, but I think that you can sort of derive an emergent theme to it. And I think the theme is interesting in that, you know, in the Maltese Falcon, the inspiration for this, you know, Sam Spade's maneuvering and his lying and his manipulating of people is what saves the day. And in this, as soon as they're trapped, they just decide to tell the whole thing. You know, he just pulls a Captain Picard and he goes, okay, here's the deal. This shouldn't work at all, but like, you're not real. We're in this thing. We need to get out. It's important. And the program just plays along because it's programmed to, but his solution to this, the thing that he goes to is, I'm going to tell the absolute truth and I'm not going to lie to anybody because that's not who I am. That's not what we do. Okay.
So it's like him in opposition or whatever.
It's like the total opposite of what Sam Spade would do. Yeah. He instead of tricking them, he's just blowing their mind with like the truth.
Yeah. And they, in a way, it's sort of a trick. Well, because he says like, you can't go out there. And they're like, we're going to go out there.
Yeah. I mean, he does. Yeah. Once the door's open, he's like, all right, look, we're going to get the item or whatever. Don't shoot us. And who knows what what the item is if he's just lying at that point. But yeah, he just sort of plays fair with them to the point where he blows the mind of his cop friend. And I think later episodes or later seasons would definitely go into this, but he just destroys that guy's entire world and then just turns him off. Because the guy's like, am I real? Like, my wife, I love her. Like, is my family real? Like, is any of this real? And Picard's like, yeah, I don't know. See ya.
So, yeah, because the last time I watched it, I was sort of like, it felt to me out of nowhere that it's like, oh, we're supposed to feel for this guy.
It is. Yeah, it is out of nowhere.
It is. And this time, for some reason, like, it was like, oh, yeah, it is. But that is like a great ending to it all. It does kind of go along with like even this weird, like, the futile nature in those noir stories is like, we don't ever learn what the item is. These guys get evaporated. They're not real or whatever. And then this guy gets his mind blown.
The titular big goodbye. Yeah.
And I think when I was like rewatching it and like going chronologically, I sort of thought, this doesn't matter. This guy doesn't matter or anything. But then now coming back to it, seeing all the things I've seen about other hologram characters, it's like, no, this guy, like, they sort of just made him like a real guy then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Presumably he wasn't sentient like later characters that we would see. But I love the fact that he, Picard, still treats him kindly. But doesn't lie to him, is honest. He's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, that's
yeah.
rough.
My sticking
later
point
on
before was like, oh, they're not like really friends. But then what stuck out to me this time was it was like Picard trying to comfort him, not as a friend, but as just like a caring guy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And later on, like once you introduce the Doctor, who is a special case that, there's a lot of reasons that he achieves sentience. But once you establish a persistent holographic character, then it's kind of like gloves off and everybody's kind of real. It's like when Da Vinci gets out of the holodeck and is running around, like he's, they don't have to save him. Like he is just like a non-sentient program, right? But at this point, we are so attached to the holodeck characters that we meet that it's like, no, I'm having a fun adventure with Leonardo da Vinci, even though I'm not really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it definitely creates a lot of like questions and confusion, but I think that's like making real guys, and I think they should have like a law against that.
Huge problem. This technology should not exist at all. Period.
Yeah,
but
because
but it does.
I like at least that they sort of like they take it seriously sometimes, but then I do like that they kind of joke with it, like with Vic. And they sort of reference his band in one episode's going to quit. And they're like, they can't quit. They're holograms. And he says, they don't know that.
They don't know that.
But it's like, they probably talk about that stuff around them. And it doesn't phase that band, So maybe they figured out a way around it.
Right. They're just programmed to. It doesn't sound like anything to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense. I also think about how the characters in this sort of like, they sort of reference like how goofy they're dressed and everything. But it also does feel like, it does sometimes feel like some of them are just like NPCs, and they'll just like react to you how the story is supposed to, go. And it's only until they like push it, and start telling them the truth where they like sort of start to go against what the story would be,
Yeah. Don't poke too sharply at that fantasy because there's a lot under there.
Yeah. Right.
Well, we're talking about the technology of Trek. Sometimes it has thorny issues. Sometimes it's the complication that characters are dealing with, like in this episode. So on every show, we randomly pick from a list of Star Trek technologies. We add what we get to the non-Trek media and subtract it from the Trek episode to see how each would be different. We call this our technological exchange. And the technology list that we work off of goes like this. We've got phasers, holodecks, tricorders, transporters, warp drive, replicators, communicators, shields, advanced medical technology, and androids, like we see in this episode. And if I roll on my random number selecting device, the number I get is number 9. And number 9 is advanced medical technology.
Okay.
So if we add the kind of advanced medical technology they have on Star Trek to the world of the Maltese Falcon, what happens?
Well,
first of all, Archer's not dead.
A lot less.
I mean, he can be
people are dying.
He can be in the hospital, but he's not dead. Yeah, nobody dies. None of the characters die from gunshot wounds.
Okay, so another feature of advanced medical technology is they do this all the time in Star Trek. Is they give them crazy plastic surgery to like blend in to different stuff. That could just give you a whole host of options when you're a private investigator or maybe someone with a mysterious item you're trying to, sell to someone.
Yeah. Okay, here's my pitch.
Yeah.
Here's my pitch. Mary Astor plays all of the characters. There is no gang. It's just Mary Astor, who appears initially as Bridget O'Shaughnessy, but also is Gutman, is Elisha Cook's character.
Okay. That works perfectly with what we were saying about, like, she's behind it all. Is that, like, she's literally behind it all.
She's the mastermind. She's her own muscle. She is the femme fatale. She is everything.
She could slowly, like, replace, like, his friends and colleagues, too. Like, kill them off, and then, like, she shows up to work, and he doesn't know.
Yes, she's replaced Effie, so he's sending her on tasks, but she's like sabotaging the tasks, and then he finds Effie's body later, and he's like, "My God, what's been happening?"
He doesn't even realize he's having an affair with her. That's how they fall in love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's not enough. So first of all, we don't get advanced medical technology enough because this is fun. But also, there aren't enough like shapeshifter movies. I feel like we had a lot of like shapeshifter things before. Where are the things where somebody can look like somebody else?
Like body snatchers type thing.
Yeah, it's a huge part of DS9, obviously. But yeah, we need another body snatchers or something.
They should have done it more in Deep Space Nine, I think, too. That's just
they did it some
more. I'm saying. Like, there should have been a whole season of, like, who's this? Who's that? type thing.
Everyone, you never know who you're talking to. Everybody could be somebody else.
Yeah, Shapeshifter Noir could be cool. I'm sure that has happened before. I guess that's like what Odo's into. He does do that. He like is like, I'm gonna be this like lamp and like listen to someone, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna stake out this meeting by being a painting or something like that.
Yeah, so you could also
which
do that.
Honestly, yeah, I don't know how the search and seizure laws work in Star Trek, but it seems like that wouldn't really fly. Well, but hey,
Odo's a little morally gray sometimes.
Yeah,
maybe,
or orange, or beige, or whatever he is.
Yeah, he's a weird shade of pinkish orange.
What would happen if we took that advanced medical technology away from Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Well, they would be less in a rush to get off the holodeck.
Because they're like, this guy's
he's gonna die.
Yeah, Wayland dies no matter what happens.
That'd be fun. I would love to see like a space show where like we can like fly to different galaxies and stuff, but it's like if you stub your toe you'll die, or they're like using leeches, you know.
Yeah,
that would actually be great if they like got some hollow leeches. They're like, well, the safeties are off, let's just like put that on there. Leeches.
Right, yeah. Wouldn't anything, like this scalpel would cut him. I can take the bullets out, and yeah, Crusher just kind of stands there. Like there isn't any first aid kit in the office or anything they can do.
Well, that's maybe they view that as so like because you know, like maybe this is just a Bones thing, but you know when like Bones is freaking out about like surgery, like from the,
right,
like maybe that's how they all view it. It's like that's disgusting. Like maybe they view like that stuff just as weird as we do, like putting leeches on people.
Oh, so like they're freaked out by Band-Aids.
No, like, Crusher wouldn't be because her grandma or whatever.
Oh, well, yeah, she was like a herbal healer, but yeah.
She should have been
just wave something over it. Don't put that Band-Aid on it. Yeah, maybe they'd have to, knowing that they can't just resolve this problem and then get him to sickbay and wave something over him. Maybe he does have to lie, and he has to say, okay, I'll bring you to where the item is, but we have to go by the hospital first, because presumably a holodeck hospital would work just like a real hospital. You know, you'd have all the equipment there that could possibly save a man's life.
Until you find out like in they forgot to program a hospital right.
Yeah, maybe if he never visits a hospital in the novel, does it exist? Yeah, like is there a program? Is there a surgeon program in the San Francisco simulation?
I'm actually thinking it's the same guys who made the guns that shoot. They're like, all right, we don't need a hospital. No, it's like it is like a game design problem. They're like, we found out if you load the hospital in, for some reason all the trees disappear and we don't know why, so we just gotta leave the hospital out.
So you just drive around for hours in San Francisco and there's just no hospital. Yeah,
just a void.
There's one street that kind of just loops back over on itself again and again. Yeah. Oh man, they really gotta do at least an episode that like digs into the holodeck or like virtual worlds for sure.
Yeah, they can't do it. They just can't do it now, unless it's like it has to be very serious. They don't have like any time for side quests like we do in the classic Treks. You know,
that's true. Yeah, I missed that about New Trek, and I think that there is juice there. Although maybe Matrix Resurrections prove that maybe there's certain ways that you don't do it. But I would like to. People like a good mind fuck.
I think it'd be fun. Like I said, there could be a whole episode. Maybe it's not. I know I said the law thing, but maybe it's like they're just like every week. It's like Time Cop, where it's like every week. Let's just go. Maybe it's like Star Trek, and they're in history class, and they're like every week. Let's go.
Oh yeah, back like a Mr. Time. Peabody situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Or just
and then like not every week. It doesn't have to be, the safeties are off. We're gonna get beheaded by Ramses or something like that.
Sometimes they find a good way to be like, we got to go along with this for other reasons. Though I guess a lot of times it's like, oh, it's broken. We got to end the program.
Yeah.
I also they could just do a workplace drama about, like I said, the guys who originally programmed the holodeck.
These guys are programming it. Yeah,
guys and girls. They're programming that holodeck. They're trying to make it work, They're testing it. Like, people are dying, for sure.
They're leaving bullets in. Yeah, right. Oh, I got bad news. We're all fired. Yeah. Well, I think we covered our subject pretty well. Do we want to talk about what's going on next week's Backtrekking?
Well, I feel like we got another like classic example. Well, we've done Shakespeare before, but we're doing it again.
Yeah.
We are talking about the original series episode, The Conscience of the King, which it's got a few Shakespeare references in there, I believe. But we're going to focus in on Hamlet this time. Maybe you've heard of it. Specifically, I think we're going to watch the 2009 movie of Hamlet, which I have not seen.
Yes, the 2009 David Tennant. It was a Royal Shakespeare theater production, and they filmed it. It's like a filmed version of it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm excited to see what that one's all about. Oh, Patrick Stewart's in it, so that'll be cool too.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart plays Claudius. Yeah, so yeah, looking forward to that, and that is available, I think, on Amazon if people want to watch it before we get there. But yeah, different. Haven't seen that one. Seen a lot of, I think, almost every filmed version of Hamlet, but haven't seen that one. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
The play is the thing in that particular case. Well, that's it for this week's Backtrekking, and thanks for listening, everybody. If you like the show, tell a friend about it, and you can follow us at Backtrekking on Twitter, and tell us, too, what you think that we should look at in future episodes. Once again, we always ask for ideas at this point. We're just getting started in the year, and we've got a schedule planned out, but we're always looking for audience suggestions. If you've got an episode of Trek and you know what inspired it, let us know about it. Gooey, tell the people where they can find you online.
You can find me. I'm on Twitter at GooeyFame.
And I'm at K1IBAN on Twitter. And you can find all of the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. And that's it for us. We will see you soon. And until then, keep on trekking.